So good afternoon, everyone. Last class, we discussed about various applications of control systems engineering, and we also had an overview of how mathematical modeling is done and how this mathematical modeling is useful in predicting the performance of any of the mechatronic systems, any of the mechatronic products, for that matter, any product. Before it is launched, before it is prototyped, before it is physically manufactured, we carry out the dynamic analysis of performance of that new product. And then we predict how this product is going to behave under various working conditions, and based on the designer's requirement, we make the necessary modifications required in a given product so that it suits all the requirements. Now there is something called as product lifecycle management, PLM. You must have heard. Earlier we used to simply geometrically design the product. We used to call it as CAD, computer aided drafting. Then it became computer aided designing. Then it became computer aided analysis. So CAD, CADD was the case earlier. Then it became CAD. Then it became CAE. Thereafter we added CAM part. We added computer integrated manufacturing part. So these automations took place in batches, so to say. So designing and drafting was automated by using software tools. Manufacturing was automated by using computer-aided process planning tools or computer-aided manufacturing tools. And then computer-aided analysis was used to carry out the design analysis, strength analysis, failure analysis, and crash analysis of the product. So all these automations took place in batches, and thereafter the concept called as computer integrated manufacturing came into existence, wherein we just amalgamated, we just brought all these islands of automation, CAD, CAM, CAP, CAE, together, and together we created, so to say, computer integrated manufacturing environment. So these were the developments those took place over the past few years, and thereafter, in continuation of these developments, the new concept called as all these automations took place till the product is manufactured, till the product is packaged, till the product is dispatched. So some of the ERP tools were also used for automating the supply chain till the product reaches the customer. So these were in stages, these automations took place, and thereafter this concept called as product lifecycle management came into existence. Now what is this product lifecycle management? Suppose you are a tire manufacturer. You automate all the tree design, ply design, and rubber selection, and then whatever are the mixing compounds and whatever are the temperature conditions, pressure conditions you maintain, and you considering the different road conditions, you design a tire, so to say, and then you automate all the manufacturing activities, and then you manufacture the product, and then you use all your ERP, enterprise resource planning tools, so that your supply chain management is automated and it reaches the customer efficiently. Now this is what is called as automation in batches. Now this product lifecycle management, what it does is it follows up the product throughout its life. So what we are doing, we are expanding these islands of automation till it is scrapped. Understanding, it is manufactured, it is used, it is performing over a period of time. Maybe after 20,000 kilometers of running, maybe 25,000, some tires give you 40,000 kilometers of running, and then it is needed to be scrapped. Now, in this product lifecycle management approach, a designer not only thinks of the product till the final production, by final manufacturing, uh, till it reaches the customer. But it also thinks about, the designer also thinks about under what conditions these tires will be used. We have designed it for maybe tar road, we have designed it for maybe some rough road, village roads. But if this tire is going to be used in mining applications, in beach areas where sandy roads are there, maybe in Himalayan terrain we'll be using, in Ladakh we'll be using all these tires. You don't have control over the usage of that tire. So as a designer, before the product is manufactured, the designer needs to think and imagine and just speculate under what conditions these products will be used. And before it is the first prototype is manufactured, we have to carry out some simulated experiments on the product beforehand, only before the first prototype is built. And then, considering all these future usage requirements, so see, creativity to what level it is required as a designer. It's not just selecting the material, selecting the manufacturing process, manufacturing and assembling and maintaining quality and releasing the products. Not just that. One has to think, the designer has to think of the probable application areas, in particularly countries, Asian countries like India. Most of the products are multi-utility products, so to say. We see so many innovations taking place. The motorcycle is connected to a pump, and then we call it as innovation, and the pump is run. And normally, the vehicles are designed maybe for 5 people, 6 people, 8 people. Upon the tum-tum bagitli, maybe it is designed for 10 people, but more than 30 people are riding that tum-tum. More than 30 in villages, 50 people are riding, and it is used so roughly, and still the product survives. So one must put one's hats, one must appreciate the efforts of the designer, because he has thought of all these contingencies, all these of rough usages beforehand, and finally the product is manufactured and still it survives. And there the concept of reliable performance, it is not just quality of the product, it is the reliable performance of the product that comes into reckoning, that becomes important. So today's buzzword is not just quality. Today's buzzword is not just low cost. Today's buzzword is reliability also. So what is the difference between quality and reliability then? As the word indicates, the meaning of the word indicates, quality is the fitness of the purpose, and reliability is one can rely on that product. If you take the case of a bulb, the quality of the bulb, okay, when the lights are put on, it should give me so many lumens, it should give good light, fine. But how about the life? Maybe 3,000 hours of life. So that is related with reliability of that bulb. So what is the reliability then? It is timed quality, or quality with a time dimension. Okay, and in some cases, the product, the reliability is also defined in terms of mean time to failure, MTTF, mean time between failures. So see the kind of imagination, the kind of performance expectation we need to have in our product. So all these reliability measures are to be considered. Now, why I'm talking about all this? Our control system approach can help us a lot in providing that reliable performance aspect also. Because I have developed a mathematical model, I'm subjecting that product to variety of input conditions. Maybe, so imagination is the limit. In what way this product could be used. We take the case of a mixer, domestic mixer. Though it is mentioned that it should be used for making juices or grinding soft products, many a times we use it for rough purposes also. So the designer has to be a thoughtful person. He should think about the possible usage, possible failure areas, possible uh, overloading area. So all these aspects the designer has to think, and then through my mathematical analysis, through my control system analysis tools, I should be able to subject that mathematical model to a variety of input conditions, and then come out with such a design which is not only of quality, it is also of reliability. So all these tools are being used by many of the reputed companies. Most of the automobile companies, if you take the case of Toyota manufacturing system, you take the case of Suzuki, even take the case of Honda. So all these companies, maybe L&T, maybe Tata Johnson, so Johnson Controls. So you name the multinational companies, General Electric, all these companies provide, you carry out these product analysis by using these MATLAB tools, control system tools, modeling tools, and then they come out with the most reliable product. And that's why these products become truly international products. See, a man sitting in America, man sitting in California, he thinks of the usage of that product in China, the usage of the product in Thailand, usage of the product in India, usage of the product in maybe Scandinavian countries like Norway, Sweden, Russia. So he thinks of all those environmental conditions, working conditions, and then makes that product such a reliable product. How it is possible? It is possible only through systematic projection of usage and then using these mathematical modeling tools, carrying out rigorous testing on this virtual testing of these products, and then come out with the best possible product. So this is how this mathematical modeling tools used in control system analysis become relevant. Last class we also discussed about what is a system, what is a control system, and then today we are going to discuss about there are many classification areas. As per our curriculum, we are going to think of only open loop systems and closed loop control systems. Okay, so this is a broad classification of most of the control systems. In an open loop system, output is not fed back to take corrective action. Most of these systems are timer based. Take the case of a toaster, take the case of traffic control system, take the case of washing machine. All these are called as open loop system. Now, what do you mean by this open loop system? The output is not fed back to take corrective action. Now, take the case of a toaster. Domestic toaster, electrically heated domestic toaster. If you have used, you have seen, you put the fresh bread slice inside the toaster slot, set the timer maybe for 1 minute, 2 minutes, and then just put the toaster on. What happens? After 2 minutes are over, the toast pops up, and then you get the toast coming out of it. But why it is called as open loop system? So we are not controlling the quality of the toaster. So whatever time setting I do, the quality of the toaster is dependent on your appropriate selection of time. What might happen? Sometimes it is not fully toasted. It has not become crisper. It has remained wet to some extent. It is not crispy, crunchy, and brown in taste. So once again, we put it for 1 more minute and then. So what intervention of a user is required. So the output is not fed back and compared in open loop system. And that's why these are called as open loop system. So we don't have stricter control on the output quality of the toast. It is all dependent on the calibration that we do. It is all dependent upon the timing, rigorous experimentation that I do. It all depends upon, as I said, calibration. If Shira breads are sale, maybe I require 4 minutes of roasting or toasting. If it is a fresh bread, I should carry out rigorous experimentation and come out with the setting. For fresh bread, keep the timer of the toaster for maybe 3 minutes. For raw or older bread, keep it for 2 minutes. So it all depends on the rigorous experimentation that I do. But the toaster on its own is not assuring me that I'll be getting the crisper, crunchier, and brown tinged toast, so to say. So this is the open loop system. Similar is the case with traffic control system. So what happens in traffic control system? You go to any, maybe a different choke area, maybe a Satrasta area, wherever you have seen the traffic signals so to say. It is also timer based. Remember, maybe East Road, West Road, East Road, West Road, North Road, South Road, whatever it is, 4 roads are there. And then in sequence, the roads are, the green signal comes out. Once the green signal is on for East Road, remaining 3 will be red. West Road, accordingly, remaining 3 will be red. So all this switching takes place based on timing. It does not necessarily control the traffic flow. Why this might happen? Maybe let us call these as A road, B road, C road, and D road. What is normally done, that the timer is set for maybe 1 minute. A road will be put on. Thereafter, for 1 minute, B road will be on. For 1 minute, C road will be on. For 1 minute, D road will be on. Once again, coming back to A road. Now, why it is called an open loop system? Because the output, that is traffic flow control, is not efficiently not efficiently controlled. How? Maybe on road A and road C, there is more traffic. What should be ideally done? And on B and D, there is not a single vehicle, but still my traffic control system, which is timer based, irrespective of whether there is vehicle or not on the road, what will happen? Road A, there is a long queue that is waiting, but it will be put on only for 1 minute, and thereafter remaining vehicles remain there. Road B, it is shifted to road B now. Road B, there is not a single vehicle. Still, it will put the green light on for 1 minute. Road C, then there is a long queue. It will be put on for 1 minute. And once again, road D, there is no vehicle. Still, the road A person has to wait that one till that 1 minute is over. So here the output is not efficiently controlled. So it all depends on, if to make this open loop traffic control system more efficient, rigorous studies have to be done. In the morning hours, which roads are full? On morning hours, which roads are empty? In afternoon hours, which roads are full of traffic? Which roads are empty? Likewise, for different time zones in a day, the designer of an open loop traffic control system has to come out with the sequential control logic. Maybe, as I said, A and C have got more traffic during 12 to 1. So my time duration for road A and road C should be more, and for road B and road D, because there is lesser traffic, the time duration for keeping the signal on should be. So accordingly, I need to do modification. But this timer-based traffic control system does not take the corrective action on its own. Okay. Similar is the case with washing machines. Whatever are the preset conditions. Okay. We set the temperature, we set the concentration of the detergent, we set the torsion of the motor, we set the stirring rate, and we expect that the clothes will be, maybe after 30 minutes, the clothes will be clean, we expect, but we don't have direct control. The washing machine does not keep on washing the clothes till they become clean, right? So what they do, as per the time setting of various processes, various sequential processes, it will just complete its sequence of operations, but it does not control the cleaning. It all depends on our judgment. If the clothes are dirty, instead of 20 grams of detergent, I need to put maybe 50 grams of detergent. I need to change all those settings to get the efficient wash, cleaner clothes. Maybe I need to oily clothes. I have worked on a machine and then all that grease and oil is there. My clothes are dirty with all those rubbishes, and then I have placed it inside my washing machine. And if I keep my regular washing cycle, I might not get the cleaner clothes because the dirt level is higher. But the washing machine does not take the corrective action on its own. Regular washing machines we are talking about. Nowadays, there are newer versions which provide me intelligent washing cycles even. But normally, these washing machines are open loop control system examples, right? So there, the quality of the cloth is not, the quality of wash or cleanliness parameter is not controlled. Of course, by putting some sensors and transducers, I can make these open loop controls. I can convert these open loop control systems into closed loop controls. But the more cost is involved, and more sophistication on the design part is involved. Maybe in a toaster case, I can use some reflector, and that reflector will reflect the light of the image of the toast, and that reflected light is projected on maybe a photo sensor. So the browner tinge will give me different light reflection. The yellowish tinge will give me different light reflection. The light intensities will be different. The whiter light will give me different light intensity. So accordingly, I can calibrate those sensors. Whatever is the voltage generated by those photo sensitive sensors, that can be correlated with the quality of the toast. So that's how we can convert this open loop toaster into a closed loop toaster. Even the traffic control system, by putting some cameras, and based on the feedback that is taken from the cameras on each roads, accordingly the roads which are having more traffic, that signal will be kept open for longer time. So that is how I can convert those open loop systems into closed loop systems. Even washing machine, by using more sophisticated sensors for sensing the cleanliness parameter of the clothes, I can convert these open loop control system to closed loop control system. But in all normal circumstances, for considering the cost involved, considering the usage level involved, considering the sophistication expectation involved, normally these are not closed loop control systems. If required in specialized cases, we can specially design these equipments as feedback control system or closed loop control system. But in normal cases, all these examples correspond to examples of open loop control system. Quickly, we'll see what is a closed loop system now. Now you should be able to tell me. In open loop system, the output was not fed back. In closed loop system, output is fed back, sensed, transduced, and fed back, and it is compared with the set value. Whatever is my expected value, it is compared with that set value, and depending on the error, the corrective action is taken to get the desired output. So it is a closed loop cycle that I get in case of a closed loop control system. So that is the open loop. The feedback is not taken in open loop. In closed loop, the feedback is taken by using some sensors. Furnace temperature control system, I'm heating the furnace by using maybe electrical coils, and I have set it for 1000 degrees Celsius. Now, what I do in a closed loop furnace temperature control, I use some sensor. Maybe I use a thermocouple, I use a thermistor, whatever sensor I use the RTD, and I sense the temperature. What is the present temperature? 900 degrees Celsius. Now that temperature is fed back to the comparator, and comparator compares. Well, these will be the transduced signals. Those will not be the temperature signals, so to say. The temperature is appropriately converted into some appropriate electrical signal, maybe some voltage. 1000 voltage, 1000 degrees Celsius corresponds to maybe 10 volts. I can design such a transducer for that. And then the feedback signal is corresponding to 900 degrees Celsius. I have got 9 volt feedback signal. Now a comparator compares 10 volt with 9 volt. Well, the error is of 1 volt. Accordingly, the corrective action is taken by the controller, and accordingly the heater will be put on for some more time. And once again the sensor senses, and it will show 950, 980, maybe 1000. And when this 1000 signal is fed back and compared with 1000 set value, the error signal becomes 0. Till that time, this closed loop cycle keeps on working. So the output is constantly monitored in case of closed loop control system. Examples are furnace temperature control system. Human body is the best example of automated closed loop control system. In CNC machine tool, the feed rate, the depth of cut, all those parameters, spindle speed, lubricant control, coolant control, all those things can be done, and those can be constantly fed back till the desired output is obtained. So there are a number of examples of closed loop control systems. So this is how we can have a broader comparison of open loop control system and closed loop control systems. So open loop control system, output is not fed back to take corrective action, whereas in closed loop control system, output is fed back and compared, and corrective action is taken to get desired output. So which one is the most preferable control system, friends? Obviously, closed loop control system. These are also called as feedback control systems, are the most preferred. but there are many limitations as well. We are going to discuss it in coming classes. The cost will be the major differentiator. The open loop control systems are low cost. If those are open loop control systems are properly calibrated, those work fantastically well. So even today, toasters, those don't cost you much. So there is no need of closed loop control. We have to just, through experience, we have to set the timing for toasting. There is no need for using a reflector, having a feedback, and then controlling the quality of the toast. So there is a optimum combination of cost and the features that I want. So normally they don't provide you the feedback controls. So depending on my usage area, depending on my cost limitations, depending on my environmental conditions, depending on my working conditions. So all these factors decide whether I should go in for open loop control system or closed loop control systems. So if I want to have very precise, let us take the case of a robo performing maybe retinal operation, which is assisting the ophthalmic surgeon in carrying out my eye operation. There I should not use the open loop control system, because there is cost is not the limiting factor. So I want precision and correct performance. Otherwise, the things will go haywire. Your operation will not be successful. It might cause damages to the patient. So wherever I want very precise usage, where I want maybe silicon wafer manufacturing, PCB assembling unit, where the precision is of utmost importance, I strictly going for closed loop or feedback control. In rest of the operations, I might, because if cost is not the limitation, I can always go in for, because I can always go in for closed loop control system, because it is going to give me best performance always. But if cost is a limiting factor, I need to go in for open loop control system. Okay, so I think friends, today we should stop for today, and